Hello, my name is Visklugers and welcome to a second tank review on Armored Warfare, and it's the same concept except the different dealer. The different dealer today is the Shishkin, and we'll be going through their tier 1 and 2 vehicles. So at tier 1 we have PT76, which could not be more different than the other tier 1 vehicle, which is the M113. It has 840 hit points. It is fairly much when comparing to the M113, which has only 660 hit points, so it's quite a bit chunk more health. The armor is non-existent. It doesn't have any armor. Any shot will pretty much go through. Only bounces that you will get are extremely lucky or being absorbed by your tracks, but it has no spaced armor anywhere except the tracks, and it has nowhere any armor. Mobility wise, speed limit is 36 kilometers per hour, which is drastically lower than the M113, which has almost 58 kilometers per hour speed limit. The acceleration is also a lot worse. It takes 4.15 seconds to accelerate to 35 kilometers per hour. The M113 has only 2.5 seconds. So this tank is not like main battle tank slow. It's not like slow, but it is very sluggish. It takes some time to accelerate and start to move, and it's not very good at turning. You do have to move back and forth to turn to left or right if you get stuck or you drive into a building or something. You know, if you run into a situation that you just have to make like 90-degree turn like right now and you don't have a space to maneuver, it is quite painfully slow. It's not like super slow, but if you played a couple of games in the M113, it feels really bad and slow, even though it's not really that bad in comparison to any bigger tanks. The vision is 385 meters, so it's a lot worse than the M113, which has 465, so you're lacking 80 meters of view range. So yeah, that is a really big concern, because the camo is also a lot worse. It's half of the M113. It's only 0.18. So you can really easily find yourself in a situation where you are spotted and under fire, but you cannot see the enemies shooting you if you are left alone. So that can be an issue. Firepower wise, well, they couldn't be more far apart from each other. The M113 had the autocannon with the 30-shot clip. The PT76, however, has a reasonably meaty gun. Its alpha damage and AP is 203, and on heat 225 points of damage, which is a lot in comparison. The alpha damage in M113 was only 22. So the M113 has to fire approximately 10 penetrating shots every single time the PT76 lands one solid penetrating hit. So you can really out-trade your opponents if you can go hide and put one shot in and then go hide and reload again. It's really good at that, and it also has far superior penetration. 150 millimeters of penetration on AP shells and 129 millimeters of penetration on heat shells, in comparison to the autocannon's 69 millimeters of penetration. It's more than double. So you can actually take head on bigger opponents. The M113 has to rely on sneaky tactics and outflanking and outmaneuvering enemies. The PT-76 can actually take head-on bigger targets than you if you know where to place your shots. Of course, there will be opponents that do not have like any armor, for instance the M41 and the Lab 150, and there will not be any problem to anyone. Their armor will not make trouble to anyone. Their armor is so bad that, you know, pretty much anyone can penetrate them with anything. But the PT-76 can actually go through some of the main battle tank armor on Tier 2 tanks. In Tier 3 you'll start to have serious problems, but in Tier 2 it's quite capable. DPM wise 1991, which is a lot lower than the M113, but it's not really fair comparison because the M113 has the auto cannon, and while it has a lot of DPM, you cannot really use it super effectively alone, because you have to stay exposed so long while unloading your magazine. The PT-76 can hide between shots, so it's not really fair. What is fair though, to compare it to the Tier 2 main battle tanks, for instance, the T54, which is at one tier higher, which is the next tank you will get out of the PT, has 1920, which is actually slightly lower. And the Patton 48 has only 1680, which is quite drastically lower than the PT-76. So your DPM is actually quite favorable. As a Tier 1 tank, you're always good. If you're the baby tank and you have more DPM and you actually have some penetration to work with, yeah, in good hands, this tank can bring the hurt to a bigger opponents. So the rate of fire is 9.62 and reload, and that sums up the reload to 6.24 seconds, which is quite nice actually to begin with. In World of Tanks you have like couple of seconds of reload, and I think it just makes it messy and so on. Now you have in here a little bit over 6 seconds, which really kinda gives you a flavor of what to come. Most tanks have something like this, or maybe a little bit longer reload time, and you actually have some time and sense to go hide and behind destroyed tanks and behind buildings and stuff, and not just take the shots in the open. The accuracy is actually better than the M113. It's 0.13, which is actually surprisingly good. The Tier 2 main battle tanks both have 0.17 accuracy, so this tank is actually, it has pretty good alpha damage, it has pretty good penetration, it has pretty good DPM, and it's quite accurate. So actually, being in a Tier 2 game, it's not that bad. The only drawback is that you don't have any armor. And the aiming time, of course, it has to be 2.7 seconds, which is not too favorable, but it's still a lot better than the Tier 2 main battle tanks. They have almost 3.5 seconds. So you actually do have, well, not as good gun, I think. The penetration is something that you will need in Tier 2 and onward, but you really rarely do meet Tier 3 opponents in the PT-76, mostly Tier 1s and 2s, and the 150mm of penetration is, you know, it's good enough. So adding that extra penetration, that extra accuracy, extra aiming time. It's really solid gun. It's really good. The only really big drawback of this gun, of this vehicle, is the total lack of gun depression. Maximum 4, minimum 1 degree. It's horrendous. So to summarize this vehicle, it has no armor and it's very sluggish in mobility, but it has a really good gun. So you pretty much have to be a sniper. Not necessarily, but you have to be either a sniper if you face a bigger, higher tier opponents, because you do have flexibility since you are accurate. Your aiming time is not too bad. It's not super good, but it's not too bad. You can really aim faster than your big brothers can. And you are actually quite accurate, and you can actually bring in the DPM. You really can't do the spotting yourself though, so if you're left alone, that won't work so easily. Or it will work, but only for the first shot, because when you pull the trigger, you will be spotted. Now, the alternative style of gameplay would be, up close and personal brawling, because you do have the penetration and the alpha damage, so you can make peekaboo moves and just plant a big shell into someone's side or even front and just maybe take one hit in return, go hide, and then just repeat. If they are like something like an M113, they cannot outtrade you. You'll be getting like a couple of hits in return, but they make so minor damage in comparison to your 225 points of damage on average with the heat shells. So it's just no contest. And if you are going in up close and personal, it will negate the fact that you have really bad gun depression. If you are sniping, it can be quite tedious to find positions where you can shoot down effectively, because you have to pretty much just get your whole tank leaning downwards and actually aiming up, because the gun just won't go down. But all in all, it's a tank that gets it requires a bit of time to get used to, but it's very solid in performance. You cannot rely on your armor though, but the gun is really good. It's really the thing that makes this tank shine. And I think this is a perfect tank to learn the game and learn even World of Tanks to some degree, because it really, the gameplay that you have to develop in this tank is something that will carry on in it will carry on to higher tier games, and the things that you learn will not be in vain. In World of Tanks, the tactics you develop in the early tiers, you really can't use them in the late game, in the later tiers, because it's just a mess. And the tanks are built in the way that you really can use your armor very effectively. Well, sometimes you can, but the rate of fire is just so high in most cases that it makes no sense to take cover and find good positions. It just becomes that surprise the enemy and unload your superior DPM. In Armored Warfare and the PT-76, it's a really solid medium tank style of gameplay, and I really like that. Moving on, we have the first main battle tank of the line. We have T54. And the T54 is a very good tank. Let's just get out of the bat. The T54 is a really good tank. The Pattern 48, just personal reference, I did not like that tank. I just did not like it. The T54, it's a solid performer. The hit points of this vehicle is 930, which is actually quite much lacking. The Pattern 48 has 1105, which is quite drastically more. But let's go to the armor. Frontal armor 120mm, side armor 80 and 60 on the rear. Turret armor 205 in the front, 130 in the side and 60mm in the rear. So, of course, these are like the best statistics. The lower plate of the frontal armor is not 120mm thick. I'm not sure how much it is. I'm guessing like 80 millimeters or something. You can quite easily penetrate it unless you're aiming down on it. That can actually quite easily bounce. But in most cases, if you shoot at the lower plate, it will go in. But the turret, even on the side, 130mm is quite much at tier 2. So it is surprisingly well armored. Especially if you're using an autocannon. It's no guaranteed penetration even on the side. If it has even a slightest of angle, the effective armor is far from that 80mm. So you will really struggle penetrating the T54 if you don't have high penetration gun. And of course the 120mm that is on the front is heavily angled. So if you do have like 130mm, 140mm of penetration, you will have a really hard time going through frontally unless you hit the lower plate or some commander's hatches or something like that. But you will do minor amount of damage if you hit a hatch. Moving on to mobility, 48.6 kilometers per hour speed limit is not much, but you will rarely see that much speed from this vehicle because it is slow to accelerate. It takes 9 seconds to accelerate to 35 kilometers per hour, which is slow. It is really slow, and if you go even a slight uphill or off-road, it's just so incredibly slow, and it won't turn that much better. It is very slow. Well, I don't know, super slow. It's not like Tog 2 from World of Tanks, but it is like super Pershing slow. It is very slowish, and comparing it to the PT-76, it turns like a rock. It's a little bit disappointing. In World of Tanks in tier 9, it's really fast, medium tank, solid performer. In here, it's more like a heavy tank style of gameplay. Vision is very bad. 360 meters, which is same to the Pattern 48. They're both blind as a bat, but the camo rating is a lot better than the Pattern 0.17. But it's, yeah, well, you will be anyways in the heat of action in the front lines, so the camo rating doesn't really matter that much.
Direct hit.
Firepower wise, alpha damage on armor piercing 251, on heat 282 points of damage, which is a lot. It is a lot of damage for each shot, and the penetration isn't that bad. 186 with AP, 159 with heat. So the alpha damage and the penetration is better than in the Pattern 48. So surely it should have a really long reload. No,
Targets identified.
the DPM is a lot better. 1920 versus 1680. Rate of fire 7.5. Reload 8 seconds. So yes, it has a half of a second longer reload time than the Pattern 48, but the alpha damage it's just so much better. It's just not a contest, and the accuracy is the same, and all intents and purposes the aiming time is also the same. So the gun is just a lot better than the Pattern 48's gun. It's a really solid gun, and it's just if you are shooting targets that have no armor or tier 1 vehicles, you're just going to have a field day. The amount of damage you deal is just, oh man, it's just something you have to experience for yourself. It's really great. The turret traverse is 25.38 degrees per second, which is slowish. It isn't fast. It is actually quite slow, but it's still a lot better than the Pattern 48s. Well, I say a lot, but if you're competing against 21.7 degrees per second, even couple of degrees more is it means a lot. It's not fast by any means, but it's closer to 30 than 20. So yeah, if you are in the heat of the action is usually dead ahead. So you really don't need to turn your turret that much. So it's workable. The gun depression is surprising. 9 degrees maximum, 6 degrees minimum. So it is actually pretty good. Which is just like, wait a minute, where's the downsides of this tank? So it has a really great armor, it has a really great gun. The view range and the camo doesn't really matter because you love to be in the front. Well, it's the mobility. The mobility is a really big drawback. But again, since you are in the front, it's not that bad. The only couple of situations when it's really frustrating is that if there's a lot of ground to cover before you get to the point you wanna be. Let's say there's a field and at the end of the field there's a town and you wanna get into that town to be, you know, really doing the main battle tank stuff you wanna do. It takes a great amount of time before you get there, and you're a really easy target for anyone
All
sniping.
Armed and hot.
Zooming in on the field. And also, if you get caught out by a lightly armored tank, light tank, or armored fighting vehicle, who's like a really big speed demon, they can run rings around you pretty easily, and there's not a lot you can do about it. But other than that, it's a really good and solid vehicle. Not a lot to not like about this. It's a really good tank. I have had maybe one game that I wasn't that pleased about the performance, but it was mostly me, and the matchmaking was, well, like a lot of tier 3s and 4s, so what you gonna do? But most of the time, you're in tier 2 games, and maybe see a couple of tier 3s, a lot of tier 1s, and you can just stomp on tier 1s, except the PT-76 that can give you some trouble. But you will just punish them back a lot harder than they can ever imagine punishing you. The last on the standard armor set, we have the M41, aka Bulldog, or Walker Bulldog. The M41 is a light tank in comparison to the LAV 150's armored fighting vehicle status. The armor is better than in the LAV, but it doesn't tell. The hull is 25 all around and the turret is 35 at the most. So really anything anything coming from like a main tank gun will go through. Autocannons can sometimes bounce from the angled frontal turret armor and from the gun mantlet, but other than that, you're relying on dodging and not being spotted on the first place. So, how's the mobility? Well, 72 kilometers per hour top speed. That is really good. That is really good, and it is really fast. On the smaller maps, it's really hard to control, really. On the more open maps, it is just really good fun to just race around the map. And it accelerates surprisingly fast. 3.83 seconds time to accelerate to up to 35 kilometers per hour. So it's not like it doesn't accelerate immediately, but it is quite fast. It's not like sluggish or anything. It is really, it's like good-ish. It's not like really good, but it's like good-ish. But when you get the speed going, it is, you don't need, it's just, even when driving without any upgrades, if you're driving with the stock engine and without any retrofits, it's just really fast. Really fast. Vision wise, 385 meters of view range. It's not bad, but it's not very good either. Because you can't just, stay back and spot, because your view range is just not good enough. And the camo is 0.26, which is okay, but it's not like armored fighting vehicle style of camo, which is in the lab 0.35, which is really good. The M41 is okay. It's okay, but you have to be closer than lab and you will be spotted easier than the lab. So if you are thinking about pure scouting, the lab will do it a lot better. Well, let's move into the gun. Well, we have here gun that has 185 damage on AP shells and 220 damage on heat shells. The armor piercing shell penetration is 154 and the heat shells have 129 millimeters of penetration, which is not that great. 154, well, it's pretty much equivalent, it's pretty much the same as the tier 1 PT-76 had. And the alpha damage, well, in the heat shells is 220. The PT-76 with its heat shells has 225. So you can actually compare it to a tier 1 gun. So does it have a blistering rate of fire? No, it doesn't. DPM of 1920, rate of fire 7.5 rounds per minute, reload 8 seconds. So the DPM is 1890, rate of fire 10.13, reload 5.93 seconds. So while the rate of fire it's quite good, yeah, but it's not too good. It's very much like the tier 1 PT-76, which had 6.24 seconds, and now you have 5.93 seconds. But your alpha damage is slower. In the heat shells, it's actually pretty much the same, so the DPM with the heat is a little bit better on the M41, but on AP, the DPM is worse. So, what's the accuracy? Well, 0.16, so it's not so good news there either. It's adequate, but it's not like you can really beat a sniper. No, the PT-76 had a better accuracy as well. Aiming time of 3.2 seconds. It is quite long. It's not super long, but it is quite long. I mean, if you are just sitting still and let the gun sing, well, it's not gonna be a problem at all, because, you know, 3.2 seconds of aiming and almost 6 seconds of reloading, so it's not a big deal. But this tank is made for the mobility, so when you're like driving around and so forth, you have to actually stop for quite a long time to aim if you want to actually hit something, which is a bit of a bummer. Now the turret traverse rate is 31.93 degrees per second, effectively 32 degrees per second, which is okay. It could be better, but it is a tank, so yeah, it's okay. It doesn't turn that fast to make it a really big problem. It's okay. The gun depression is 9.7, maximum and minimum of 8.8. So the gun depression is the key to victory with this vehicle. You need to make use of it. Expose the minimum amount of your vehicle's hull and only expose the turret over ridges. That way you minimize the chance of being hit in the first place while still being able to shoot at the enemies. This tank is something that takes some while to learn. I haven't learned it really well yet. I have had good games in it, and I've had games where I do a lot of damage, but the games that I have had a lot of damage have been mostly so that there has been someone playing a recon role and just lighting up all the enemies, and I've just made myself a tank destroyer and just sat and shot again and again and again and again and again. So I might as well have been in a tank destroyer. So, and I was being lucky that most of the enemies had no armor, so it was a turkey shoot pretty much. So it wasn't so much due to the vehicle's strengths, but pretty much more down to luck. But it is a really good vehicle in open maps. What the vehicle is not that good is city maps. If there's a lot of corridors and a lot of like places to hide and so forth, yes, you can be a really big pain in the ass to just make one pot shot and disappear. Maybe come a half a minute later, make one shot, disappear. Yes, that works, because you can disappear very easily because of your really good mobility. But you don't make a lot of damage with a single shot. And a lot of these cases you don't have a lot of angles to approach from, and you can easily be shot every single time you shoot at someone, and there's no guarantee you will make a penetration. So it's if you're on a city map, you pretty much have to avoid going into the city unless you have overwhelming numbers and you really know that the enemy does not have a lot of armor and you know what you're doing. Otherwise, else you will just die or be really, really lucky. But to summarize, the Shishkin tree is very, very solid at the beginning. At tier 3 that I have had the chance, I have actually had quite a lot of fun. But at least for now, it is a really solid start. The PT-76, a really good tank for newcomers. T54 is a really, really fun and solid vehicle, really good brawling vehicle. M41, well, while being not that superbly generous vehicle, it is quite hard, but it is really fun as well. You really you can play with that mobility, and you do have quite good DPM. It's not fantastic, but if you can find a spot that the enemies can't spot you and you just can keep the gun singing, it's really satisfying, because it's quite hard to pull off, but when you get it, it is the best. It's just, yeah. And since these are tier 2 vehicles, yeah, it doesn't make a lot of effort to go and try them out. If there would be like tier 5 or 6 vehicles, it takes quite some time to get there, but since these are tier 2 vehicles, yeah, you should definitely go and try them out. So this has been the standard armor tank reviews. Really solid vehicles, all these 3. I hope you have found this review to be helpful and useful, and maybe a little bit entertaining as well. I thank you so much for watching. I hope that you will watch my other videos as well and leave your thoughts in the comment box. What was good about this review and what was maybe a little bit lacking or should be changed. I really do appreciate the feedback a lot, because I feel like I need it to make everything just a little bit better for everyone. Alright, thank you so much for watching, and I hope that I'll see you in the next video.